How's it going, everybody? Today I'm reviewing Cabin in the Woods. This is one of those movies where if you know less, the better the movie's gonna be. Now, if you haven't seen any of the trailers, I suggest that you just turn off this review right now and go see it. Because I'm assuming that if you're interested in the film, that you're a horror movie fan, and I want you to be able to enjoy as much of the surprises as possible. I went in just seeing the original trailer, and I knew that there was something different from most of these cabin in the woods type of horror films. And that was enough of an interest for me to see it, but I'm really glad that I ended up not seeing any other trailers. So what did I think of this movie? It put a big smile on my face. This is one of the most original films I've seen, especially horror films that I've seen in years, and I absolutely adore this movie. There really isn't a point for me to describe the plot, because the way the movie starts out is like any other. If you've seen a horror film involving a cabin in the woods, you'll know the initial premise. But the curveball they throw is what makes this movie so damn interesting. So going from the path that we're talking about a horror film, this is actually a comedy horror film. In fact, you could actually pick up from the trailer that they're actually poking fun and making satire of the stupid stuff that people do in horror films. And this makes it a absolute blast for especially people that love horror films and that can catch on to all the references, which can actually also be a double-edged sword, since you might catch on a reference that the theater might not. For example, there's a line in the film about them throwing a lady off into a volcano, and I caught the reference and I started chuckling, and everybody else was like looking at me like, why is this guy laughing? It's not funny. There are several people that are actually pretty funny in this movie, but nothing compares to Fran Kranz, who played the character Marty. He plays a paranoid pothead, and he is so funny. He carries on through the entire film, and he's really awesome. Now, in terms of comedy, this might be a disappointment for people that are expecting a full-on horror film. And I also noticed there are several parts where the change in tone is pretty drastic, and some people may not like that, but I thought I'd just point it out. Now, being that it's a horror film, this film is pretty violent. It's definitely enough to warrant a R rating. Now, if you can recall the atrocity that was The Devil Inside that came out earlier this year, I actually noticed that a lot of horror films kind of fall apart at the end. And I have to say, the ending part of the film was my favorite. Why, you might ask? That is because you get all the revelations, and there's even a really cool cameo in there. And the movie goes absolutely batshit crazy. Take the carnage scene from Daybreakers, multiply that by 1,000, and this is what the climax in this film is like. Speaking of cameos, let's talk about the acting. Acting is another thing that I find to be particularly weak in a lot of horror films. And they definitely have some very competent actors in this film. Like I mentioned earlier, Fran Kranz is the highlight for me. And also Chris Hemsworth, who played Thor, is also in it, and Richard Jenkins is also in it. Now that I've complimented the hell out of this movie, let's get to some very minor problems I had with this movie. One, so the movie starts out in a way that you typically expect from a cabin horror film, and judging that you saw the trailer, you know that there's something different, and I had this sense of urgency. I'm like, let's get to the point. Let's see why this is different from any other cabin horror film. And funny thing is that I actually found the horror to be kind of weak, with a lot of reliance on jump scares. But I have to emphasize, this is a very minute problem that I found in this movie. So overall, if you're a horror movie fan, you need to go see this. You'll have an absolute blast, and this movie deserves the money. And I'm giving this movie a 9 out of 10. No trailer of the show today, though. It was an advanced screening, and it didn't have any trailers. So thank you for watching my advanced review of The Cabin in the Woods. Please support the film, and let me know what you thought of it. Please favorite, like, subscribe, all that. And thank you for watching.